Peace and love to the family. It's your boy Corbin reporting live. I gotta be honest, it's gonna take us to realize that we are the ones we've been waiting for. It's gonna take us to wake up and realize that it is us that we are actually waiting for. Peace and love to the family. My name is Darius Corbin. I welcome you to the Darius Corbin Mystery School, the home of the esoteric and the metaphysical knowledge. As you can already see, the title, this presentation tonight, will be called COVID-19 and the Indigenous Saviors. Once again, it will be called COVID-19 and the Indigenous Saviors. I want to thank you for watching. Thank you for rocking with me. For those who are familiar with my channel, the Mystery School and the Darius Corbin channel, the originator, you understand that when I drop this esoteric, whatever it is, when I drop this gnosis to you, it is for you to keep what you materialize, manifest, and use for your benefit. Because as the late Dr. David Blair once said, there is no truth until you decide what truth is. But tonight, what I'm going to be dropping to you is going to be some bomb-ass truth for you to decipher. That's right, COVID-19 and the Indigenous Saviors. You use your imagination until we get to the main part. Until now, I'm going to adjust this camera and break down the show. So bear with me right quick, family. Once again, this is the Darius Corbin Mystery School, the home of the esoteric and metaphysical gnosis knowledge. Now, for those who watch CNN, no shade, Fox News, no shade, or even your local station, once again, no shade. For those who watch those news stations, if you expect to get what you perceive as truth coming from those stations and nothing but the truth, then you're only fooling yourself. This is your life. You narrate your own life. I feel, and this is my channel, so I have my own opinion, I feel that we, as humanity, people on this planet, that we haven't been given the full truth about this whole COVID-19. I feel like the people on this planet have been rushed to decide whether to be vaccinated or unvaccinated, with little or no choice. I've seen families divided over something that we have fully not understand. Seems like the only thing that has been invested is fear. One of my missions on this planet, and being blessed by the Mother God and the Father God, of course, is when I am blessed with certain knowledge, is to make sure I give it to my utmost truest through the people that watch, my elite and light ones. Tonight we will be hearing some information that I hope gives you more of an understanding about this pandemic that we have been going through almost 2 years now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go grab my water right quick, and I want you to grab a pen and a pad, a pen and a piece of paper, because I want you to write some things down. Now, as you watch this presentation that I'm about to drop for you, I want you to have your own notes, even while or after you watch this video. You can do your own research. So, are you ready? I'm just give you a little time to go grab a pen and paper. You know, boy, I can't wait till this water gets really cold. Okay, you guys ready? A few notes I want you to take down before we get with this presentation. Don't worry, it's going to be an amazing presentation. I want to make sure that we are on the same page before we get started. So you have your pen and pad? Yes? These are some of the key words that I want you to write down. They will be vital in not just this episode, but the whole rest of the episode is going to be dropping. Okay, number one, write down the Club of Rome. Number one, write down the Club of Rome. Number two, write down the Planetary Emergency Plan. The Planetary Emergency Plan. And number three, zoonotic. That's Zoonotic. There are going to be more keywords, but for now, those three. We have Club of Rome. Once again, that's Club of Rome. Planetary. Number two is Planetary Emergency Plan. That's Planetary Emergency Plan. And then number three was zoonotic. Number three was zoonotic. And once again, we will have further keynotes. What I'm going to do tonight is going to be dropping some more information to hopefully give we the people a better understanding of what's going on with the pandemic. Give you more than what CNN and Fox News, no shade on either network. I watch both of them from time to time. I'm going to give you a little bit more than they can or maybe are willing to give you on this COVID-19 thing and give you a bigger understanding where we are as a people. So I want all races of people, all groups. There has been a major division on this planet, but we are really humanity. Now, keep in mind, you have your keynotes. This article that I'm about to read was published 2 years ago. This article that I'm about to read was published 2 years ago, 2019. I want you to also keep in mind, to my beautiful elite and light ones watching, when was the first coronavirus, when was the first known coronavirus attack, or when was the first well-known one to hit? Do your research on that as well. Excuse me. And once again, this article that I'm about to read to you was published just 2 years ago, 2019. Are you ready? Because it gets real from here, people. It gets real from here. Club of Rome looking to Africa for solutions to climate collapse. I'm going to read that again. Club of Rome looking to Africa for solutions to climate collapse. Now, by a raise of hands, don't worry, I can see you. How many of y'all remember everybody talking about global warming by a show of hands? All right. My question is, what happens after you have gotten the warning, and didn't heed the warning? Well, if you go to your keynotes, number two is your answer, and that's the Planetary Emergency Plan. Now, I'm not sure if CNN or Fox News or any of our local news stations have told you about the Planetary Emergency Plan, but you might want to research that and get back at me in the comment section. Once again, the Club of Rome looking to Africa for solutions to climate collapse. Are you ready to start the show? 10 minutes already. Damn. Are you ready? Of course you are. In 1972, listen to the year, please. In 1972, the global think tank Club of Rome. Now, keynotes, right? What was the first keynote you had? Club of Rome. You can check that one off now. Club of Rome. Listen, in 1972, the global think tank Club of Rome issued a chilling warning that the global economy could not assume infinite growth on a finite planet. Nearly half a century later, the collapse of life supporting natural systems foretold in its limit to growth study. Family, it's time for you to pick that pen up and add number 4 to your key notes on this presentation. Number 4 is limits to growth. That's going to be what you write for number 4 keynotes. Limits to growth. I urge you to PDF this and research it, Google it, but you can PDF the book. And once you PDF that book, leave comments. I want to keep this presentation going. We might have time to break down what that is. Let me read that again. In 1972, the global think tank Club of Rome issued a chilling warning that the global economy could not assume infinite growth on a finite planet. Nearly half a century later, the collapse of life supporting natural systems foretold in its limits to growth study is unfolding before our eyes. This month, the group came home to Africa to see what the world can learn from the mother continent. Let's keep going. Extractive industry is not development. When you come to extract what is in the soil for the benefit of shareholders, when you come to pollute water, destroy biodiversity and natural resources and the ecological infrastructure, that is not development. The kind of development trajectory we want is one that is ecologically sustainable. Speaking at the Global Summit of the Club of Rome think tank held outside Stellenbosch this month, environmentalists and activist Singugu Zukulu represented the Exolobini community. And I want to make sure I spell that right. Xolobeni. Xolobeni. Zukulu represented the Lubini community. The X is in there, but it may be silent. So the Exolobini community from Pondoland on the Wild Coast, which has been fighting for 2 decades to prevent its community and environment from being torn up by Australian-based mining company Mineral Commodities, which wants to dig titanium from ancestral land. The Exolobini struggle has been described, and I quote, as the standing rock of the South, end quote, and represents the battle of indigenous communities around the world to protect their homes, livelihoods, and water from the predatory interests of governments, transnational corporations, and big business. The people of the Exolobini are saying there are only 2 acceptable ways to develop ecotourism and eco-agriculture, said Zukulu, dressed in the traditional garb of the Amadiba, spelled Amadiba, the people of Pondoland. This is what the people want, quotes. They want to produce their own food so they don't have to be dependent on anyone. He added And I quote, indigenous people around the world have a key to adaptation to climate change. We need to listen to these voices on the pathway, the voices of indigenous people in Africa, the Amazon, Latin America, and Southeast Asia, because they are say something about what sort of future we need. These people have a message for us all. For this year's summit, and once again, we're still in 2019, this article, for this year's summit, Club of Rome organizers said that the Italy-based group was coming home, and I quote, to Africa. Hmm. The Italy-based group was coming home to Africa to see what the world can learn from the stories like that of the Exolobini and to draw from indigenous philosophies such as the Ubuntu. The African wisdom of the Ubuntu is I am because we are. Does not only apply to other humans but to all of nature and speaks to the interdependence of life on earth, said Club of Rome co-president Dr. Mafili Ramfele. It's good water. The African wisdom of Ubuntu, and I spell Ubuntu, is I am because we are. Does not only apply to other humans but to all of nature and speaks to the interdependence of life on earth, said Club of Rome co-president Dr. Mafela. Please write her name down now. Dr. Mamphela. Last name Ramphele. She just got appointed co-president of the Club of Rome, the first black lady, I do believe the first African American being in the Club of Rome, the Italy-based group, the big think tank, and we're gonna go deeper into them later on. According to former Harvard Business School professor and activist in the field of corporate globalization, Dr. David Korten, last name Korten, humanity is facing and I quote, planetary emergency. And the Western world, that's us, and the Western world has to make a transition to a new economy and a new civilization. Excuse me. And I quote, to do so, we need to learn from the indigenous communities so we can bring out a depth of humanity that we have lost. Listen, the UN's recent 2019 Global Assessment Report on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services echoes the need to draw on the knowledge of indigenous communities who tend to live more sustainably on their land and hold the keys to this new form of civilization. Trust me, this all connects to COVID-19. Stay with me. Three-quarters of the land-based environment and about 66% of the marine environment have been significantly altered by human actions. The report's author says, and I quote, on average, these trends have been less severe or avoided in areas held or managed by indigenous people and local communities. To arrest the ecological overshoot driving the collapse of natural systems, I quote, we need a fundamentally different way of living. We need a fundamentally different economics to what we teach and practice now, end quote, declared Korten. Listen to this. In 1972, people, the Club of Rome commissioned Massachusetts Institute of Technology, also better known as MIT, researchers in the US to produce the now famous Limits to Growth study. And I'm going to stop right here and I'll continue. Hmm. Now, for the ones who have been paying attention and really appreciate this channel, Limits to Growth is number 4 on your keynotes, right? Hmm. Once you Google on your own term and on your own time, Limits to Growth, you're going to research the Club of Rome, of course, as well. But when you read this book, it's a book that these people put together. And some of the keynotes in that book was the urgency of depopulation. The warning that was in that book in 1972, based off this experiment that MIT modeled off, that if we do not stop overpopulating the world, stop overusing the minerals that we're going to drain our resources out on this planet. And certain problems like diseases are going to come with that. We have been told about global warming so much. Warning, global warming, but we never have been talked about the repercussions of us not listening to global warming. You're not going to hear this talk on CBS or CNN or Fox News. What I'm telling you right now, this all connects with COVID-19. So Google the Limits to Growth. Limits to Growth. You can PDF that book and you see how in 1972 they said if they didn't take control of the population, if we didn't stop food producing, and we didn't stop damaging the Amazon and destroying ancient places just for their resources, that this planet would fight back in diseases and sicknesses. We're not done. Oh, we're far from it. You got some research to do tonight, to my elite and light ones. Let's keep on going. In 1972, the Club of Rome commissioned Massachusetts Institute of Technology researchers in the U.S. to produce the now famous Limits to Growth study. In it, they used computer-based modeling to show that continuing trends in global pollution, food production, resource use, industrialization, and population growth will lead to depletion of essential resources and systems beginning in the 21st century. Did you know that? I know a lot of us watch these news stations. Have you heard this in your news station? Did you know that? We heard of global warming, but we didn't know how far we've been being warned, how long we've been being warned about this global warming. I'm gonna read that again. And once again, this all connects to COVID-19. In 1972, the Club of Rome commissioned Massachusetts Institute of Technology, also known as MIT, researchers in the U.S. to produce the now famous Limits to Growth study. In it, they used computer-based modeling to show that continuing trends in global pollution, we still deal with pollution, yes? Food production, right? Humans gotta eat, right? Resource use, going into these caves and taking the gold and the crystals and putting it on these technologies, spaceships. Industrialization and population growth. And babies gonna keep coming. All of that will lead to depletion of essential resources and systems beginning in the 21st century. They said that in 1972, the Club of Rome, and they also ended with the beginning of the 21st century. Well, put your time machine aside, family, because guess what? We are in the 21st century. How ironic. And I quote, what we're experiencing now is just what models predicted. They knew this was coming. Researchers at the Melbourne Sustainable Society Institute at the University of Melbourne recently compared the 1972 model projections with actual trends since the early 1970s and found them to be on target. If we continue on this trajectory of consumption and waste production, the Melbourne studies concludes the ecological collapse will continue in this century. Humanity faces an immediate essential risk requiring emergency action. Are y'all all right out there? I mean, are y'all getting this information right now? Y'all sit back every day and watch these news stations. They fill you with fear. They don't even give you the whole story, but they push the fear propaganda on us. It's time for you to know the truth. I gave you those key words because I know you're going to want to research on your own. And if not, I'll break it down so you can get a better understanding of it. But give me time. Give me time. Hmm. We have a planetary, quote, we have a planetary emergency with global temperature change. This is the greatest emergency that humanity has ever faced. We need to totally change the approach that humanity has used in the past 200 years and very little time in which to do it. We have some people out there who are talking about the new normal. And we have some people talking about, well, things are going to get back to the old ways. Well, let me just say that the old ways are the reason why that we are here now. There is no going back to the old ways, family. You're going to have to adjust or be dust. Because we all return to the stardust eventually. We have a planetary emergency with global temperature change. This is the greatest emergency that humanity has ever faced. We need to totally change the approach that humanity has used in the past 200 years and very little time in which to do it, said Ian Dunlop, chair of Safe Climate Australia and independent energy and climate advisor in Australia. And I quote, but there is a yawning chasm between what we need to do and what we're talking about in the Paris Accord. Now listen to this, we will do some math. At 1.5 degrees Celsius to 2 degrees Celsius, ceiling in global heating is what the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, says is the threshold that Earth's temperature should not cross if the planet is to remain within the boundaries of livability. But the carbon pollution targets laid out in the 2005 Paris Agreement will only stabilize the temperature increase at 3 degrees Celsius. Current pollution rates, which are growing year on year, are set to push planetary warming to 4 degrees Celsius and above. And I quote, the current 1 degree Celsius rise in global temperature since the start of the Industrial Revolution has already brought us to a tipping point, said Dunlop. 3 degrees Celsius bring outright chaos, and 4 degrees Celsius is complete collapse. This year, atmospheric carbon pollution has climbed to 410 parts per million, or ppm. The last time Earth experienced these conditions were about 3 million years ago during the Pliocene epoch, when, I quote, global mean surface temperatures were 1.9 degrees Celsius to 3.6 degrees Celsius higher than for the pre industrial climate, according to the UN IPCC's fifth assessment report published in 2013. This means Earth systems already faced a baked in warming of up to 3 degrees Celsius. The Pliocene is a good analog for Earth's current trajectory. Imperial College London geophysics and climate change scientist Martin Sigurd told The Guardian last April sea levels in the Pliocene were 20 metres higher than today, and beach fossils in Antarctica show that there were trees growing near the South Pole. Destroying life for money is suicidal. Destroying life for money is suicidal. Now, to let my viewers know, I am on this first episode giving you the whole pie. This is COVID-19 and the Indigenous Saviors. Right now, you are learning about the Indigenous Saviors and how COVID-19 plays a part in this, a major part. As I split the pie up on each season, on each episode, you're going to see how COVID-19 and the Indigenous people come together. So thank you for rocking with me. This is definitely a movie in real time. Let's continue on. Destroying life for money is suicidal. 30 minutes in. Excuse me, just got finished having a wonderful meal. Modern economics has failed us. Modern economics have failed us. Courtine told summit delegates. Since the 1970s, neoliberalism has schooled generations of business and government leaders into the false assumption that the economy can be built on unlimited growth and that it will relieve global poverty. Instead, neoliberalism has led to this, and I quote, predictable collapse, not just of the climate system, but of other life supporting systems such as healthy soil, forest, and water systems. And I quote, humanity consumes 1.7 times what Earth can sustain, which is coming at the expense of destroying the regeneric systems that we have to count on to maintain the health of the Earth and the humans. Let me read that again. Humanity consumes 1.7 times what Earth can sustain, which is coming at the expense of destroying the regenerated system that we have to count on to maintain the health. Listen, to maintain the health of the earth and humans. The promised trickle down of wealth has also not happened, with a cavernous divide now existing between the rich and the poor. Now, I need everybody to listen to what I'm about to say and what this article says right here, because this is spooky hours. This is probably why you won't hear this on your CNN or on your Fox News. You ready? According to Oxfam, OXFAM, this is not me, but according to Oxfam, 26 billionaires now hold personal financial assets greater than those of the poorest half of humanity, 3.9 billion people. Their resulting control of politicians, did you hear that? Media, education, research, and our means of living gives 26 individuals a greater say in economic policy making than all of the rest of Earth's 7.7 billion humans, the substantial majority of whom are locked into a desperate daily struggle for survival. Now, family, I'm only 35 minutes in. This is the Davis Corbin Mystery School. Life is a mystery. You choose to find out what that mystery is. And once you find out what that mystery is, you choose to elevate your own self. Now, you can walk around like sheep or chicken with your head cut off and then say, woe is me, and not do anything about it. Or you can get this gnosis, cherish it, and grow and fly. Liberate yourself with it. It's the age of the Aquarius. Christ divine people here. I'm going to read that again. This is just some good water. I think I'm going to be all right for another 5 minutes. I want to keep that cold as possible. They had adapts, prophets, sages back in the ancient days. Why don't you guys think that these prophets, adapts, divine spiritual beings couldn't be in this time? How naive of you. How naive of you. Let me read that again. Not according to me, but according to Oxfam, 26 billionaires now hold personal financial assets greater than those of the poorest half of humanity, 3.9 billion people. Their resulting control of politicians. Did you know politicians were controlled? Seriously, did you know that politicians were controlled by 26 billionaires? Did you know the media was controlled by 26 billionaires? The media? So they're not telling us everything? Only what these billionaires want us to put out? Or what they want to put out? Are you telling me that education is not controlled through the people? That rich people dictate our education? Their resulting control of politicians, media, education, research, and our means of living gives 26 individuals a greater say in economic policy making than all the rest of Earth's 7.7 billion humans. So, to my CNN family, to my Fox News family, and we're going to tell people, and we're going to be real journalists, and we're going to be real journalists, and we're going to be people that's going to report the news to the people. That's what I'm doing here tonight. We the people, right? Because we the people need to know this. That's why I told you to write down your key notes. Because after this video, study this stuff, and then leave on the comments what you have discovered, and let's share, and let's grow as a community, and let's take back this world together. Because this is our world. This is our world. Okay. I'm going to read it one more time. According to Oxfam, 26 billionaires, 26 billionaires now hold personal financial assets greater than those of the poorest half of humanity, 3.9 billion people. Their resulting control of politicians, media, education, research, and our means of living gives 26 individuals a greater say in economic policy making than all the rest of Earth's 7.7 billion humans, the substantial majority of whom are locked in a desperate daily struggle for survival. Is that you sometimes? Feel like you're in a desperate daily struggle for survival? You might need to highlight these 26 billionaires then. Maybe become one and then control the narrative. That's cool too. We are now talking about the collapse of civilizations and the self extinction of human species. The status quo cannot be sustained. Now, I think we as a people deserve to know that instead of just being told that we need to cover our face with masks and get vaccinated. I think we should at least know that there's a planetary emergency. Well, obviously, I guess we know that now. But I mean, they could have told us this before. Well, they did. A lot of people just don't like to read books and research their own shit. They know that. That's why they put it in books. Huh. I'll read that part again too. We are now talking about the collapse of civilization, guys, and the self extinction of the human species. The status quo cannot be sustained. The Club of Rome, who are based in Italy, who are the think tankers, and when I mean they are the think tankers, that means they don't think just for themselves. They think for me and you too. They may be in Italy based, but they are writing books and coming up with these problem solvings for humanity, whether we like it or not. You know, the Club of Rome gathering called for an end to neoliberal economics, which society's dependence on natural life supping systems and only values people and earth in terms of their market price and contribution to gross domestic product (GDP). Economists need to find a new measure for prosperity beyond GDP, which only measures growth and marketized human consumptions, regardless of how destructive it is. And I quote, "Destroying life for money is suicidal," Courtine said. But with the essential crisis of climate collapse comes an essential opportunity to create something that works for all people and life and should draw on indigenous communities' worldview that understand humanity's interdependence on each other and nature embodied in the notion of the Ubuntu, also known as the Butu tribe. Now I want to slow this down. So I know a lot of people are maybe saying, is he saying what I think he's saying? Yes, I am. Yes, I am. We have been taught by Europeans and by the rest of the world that indigenous, and when you think of indigenous, just think of black and brown, the black and brown people, that they are less than less. When you equate the indigenous people for a major part of our history, has been with slavery, it has been with cannibalism, it has been with devil worshiping. This is what Western civilization, for the most part, have labeled and put titles on indigenous people. And now, in the brink of world destruction, which we are facing, they're saying the only hope for us is the indigenous people. Are you understanding the irony of this, my family? Do you really understand how serious this is? You know, sometimes behind every mask is another mask. You see these Black Lives Matter movements. You see the importance of now celebrating black people and brown people. Some of them think of it just as due time, as it's what deserved, which it is. But don't think for a minute that these people don't understand how powerful you are. You don't understand how powerful you are. So imagine if people can benefit on how powerful you are without you benefiting from how powerful you are. That is the story of the indigenous people and the indigenous people's people life. But don't worry, it gets better from here. Oh, it gets better from here. Courtine outlined 8 principles that need to reshape the economics of the 21st century. A new economics needs to come with a new civilization, he argues, one which has, and I quote, shed the conceit that Earth was created for humans to exploit, end quote. A new economics and a new civilization. How we get there? The low regulation environment of neoliberal economics has allowed for carbon pollution to be dumped into the atmosphere free of charge and externalized the environmental and health costs of producing this waste. This debt is now being paid in the form of extreme weather events, food and water shortages, mass migration, and political instability. Restructuring economies away from a neoliberal system in order to slow carbon pollution and respond to collapse in natural systems means introducing immediate and tight government regulations that put a high cost on pollution and obliges the polluters to pay for the environmental fallout. A study released last week gives a roadmap for how to do that. Now, recently President Joe Biden went to Europe. He met with the Pope, but he also went to a UN summit, didn't he? Yes, he did. That UN summit was about climate change, wasn't it? hmm Y'all see where I'm at with this? Once again, you see how I told you the COVID-19 thing corresponds with this presentation, also corresponds with climate change. Restructuring economies away from a neoliberal system in order to slow carbon pollution and respond to collapse in natural systems means introducing immediate and tight government regulations that put a high cost on pollution and obliges the polluters to pay for the environmental fallout. A study released last week gives a roadmap for how to do that. The paper World Scientists Warning of a Climate Emergency is co-authored by Dr. Phoebe Barnard, Chief Science and Policy Officer at Biologically, excuse me, Conservation Biologically Institute in Washington, and a researcher with the University of Cape Town's African Climate and Development Initiative. The paper has the backing of over 11,000 scientists from around the world who have signed a joint declaration stating, and I quote, clearly and unequivocally that planet Earth is facing a climate emergency. The roadmap for response laid out in the paper will call for firm policies that remove fossil fuels subsidies, tax carbon pollution, encourage measures aimed at keeping fossil fuel stocks in the ground, stall the release of short-lived pollutants such as methane gas, and support a rapid switch to renewable energy sources. Barnard and her peers suggest a post-World War II style Marshall Plan approach to begin the retreat from vulnerable coastlines and massive investments in restoring ecosystems which can help mop carbon pollution from the atmosphere while providing airbags to help absorb some of the shocks of extreme weather events. With a new post neoliberal economics comes a reversal of the value systems and worldview that has allowed Western consumers, as us, culture, and predatory capitalism to plunder the atmospheric space at the expense of stable, life supporting climate. In his book, The Pattering Instinct, Jeremy Lint tracks how the Western story, underpinned by dualistic thinking, the materialism of science, and one God religion, has created a dominant modern narrative that humans are separate from nature. Mm, did y'all hear that? That was a mouthful, but did you hear that? Let me read that again. You know, I like my leading light ones because they're thinkers. Everybody subscribed to my channel are thinkers. They are with the gnosis, the knowledge, the wisdom. In his book, The Pattern Instinct, Jeremy Lint tracks how the Western story, underpinned by dualistic thinking, the materialism of science, and one God religion, has created a dominant modern narrative that humans are separate from nature. Mm, 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 mm. That we are nature's overlords, and that the natural world is there to be exploited, dominated, and extracted for our benefit. Capitalism has commodified nature further, stripping it of its inherited right to be and reducing its values to the rands and cents that can be earned from it. Part of moving to an ecological civilization, Lynn argues, means looking to other cosmologies and worldviews that return us to our place within nature. Yes, he said cosmologies, the stars, the galaxies, the universe, and worldviews that return us to our place within nature. I hope y'all read it between the lines because this is the esoteric metaphysical station, the channel, the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be, that returns us to our place with nature. See, we are already one with nature. Our females, our mothers know this. Let me read that again. Part of moving to an ecological civilization, Lynn argued, means looking to other cosmologies and worldviews that return us to our place within nature, where we realize our interdependence on it for our survival and the right of other than human life forms and ecosystems to exist. Lynn also cites the African notion of Ubuntu and the need to return to indigenous knowledge systems. The need to return to indigenous knowledge. I hope y'all ain't playing with me on this channel. When I say I am divine, I do mean that. I have nothing to lose, you have everything to gain. Trust me. Where we realize our interdependence on it for our survival and the right of other than human life forms and ecosystems to exist other than human life forms and ecosystems to exist. Lynn also cites the African notion of Ubuntu and the need to return to indigenous knowledge systems. And I quote, we need to restructure the fundamentals of our global culture and economic system to cultivate an ecological civilization, one that prioritizes the health of living systems over short term wealth production, he argues. During the summit, the Club of Rome featured its emerging new civilization initiative, that's ENCI, which lays out a new paradigm for our species' role in the greater Earth community, with values that promote human dignity, respect for nature, and protection of the commons beyond current generations. Civilization isn't about one group being more advanced or more modern than another, said Tyra Dungy, a doctoral student from Lilly Family School of Philanthropy at Indiana University during the summit. And I quote, civilization should be the best way of doing things. Hearing the marginalized and silent voices of indigenous communities. If the Western world is to make this transition to a new civilization, we need a new economics that is grounded in the reality of our true nature as living beings born of and nurtured by a living earth, said Courtine. These are not just kind words, this is our fundamental reality, which most of our science and economics have denied, which is why we are in deep trouble. 21st century economics will be grounded in the wisdom of indigenous people. You heard it here first, family. You heard it here first. Subscribe to the Darius Coleman Mystery School. See why we're not playing. See why the Age of Aquarius is here. And see why you are greater. Just subscribe. Share. Tell a friend and tell a friend. These are not just kind words. This is our fundamental reality, which most of our science and economics have denied, which is why we are in deep trouble. 21st century economics will be grounded in the wisdom of the indigenous people who lived in a balanced, symbiotic relationship with Earth. Symbiotic relationship with Earth. You remember when I said a couple years ago, the return of the witches and the shamans? Uh huh. The kitchen witches? Uh huh. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The alchemists? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. But it is these very indigenous voices that Sengugu Zukulu said are still marginalized and sometimes even silenced. Globally, in recent years, environmental and human rights activists are being murdered. Did you know that, family? Globally, in recent years, environmental and human rights activists are being murdered. Sukulu said in 2004 alone, 116 leaders were murdered. Peace to our teacher, Dr. Sebi, murdered. Dr. Deborah Blair, murdered. Dr. Francis Cress Wilson, murdered. In 2014 alone, 116 leaders were murdered and 185 in 2015. That's 3 leaders every week. They are being murdered for standing up to protect their homes and livelihoods and the health of the planet. Who is being implicated in these murders and assassinations? Who is being implicated in these murders and assassinations? Mining companies, mining companies, mining companies, agribusinesses, hmm. and logging companies. I'll be damned. Fox News, where you at? We're gonna need to investigate this. CNN, where you at? We're gonna investigate this. This month, the Washington Post ran the story of forest protection activist Paolo Paulinini Gajardo, who was gunned down by illegal loggers in the Amazon. In its 2019 report, the UK-based watchdog organization Global Witness counted the murder of 164 people who were defending their land and immediate environment. These are, and I quote, ordinary people murdered for defending their homes, forests, and rivers against destructive industries, the report says. And countless more were silenced through violent attacks, arrests, death threats, or lawsuits. The Exo-Beni struggle, once again that's Exo-Lobeni struggle, has not escaped either. In 2016, Zahaspi, and I quote, Bazooka Radabi, one of the community leaders with the Ahmadiyya crisis community, which is heading the fight against titanium mining in Pondo land, was shot in an assassination type ambush by two people dressed as policemen. And I quote, we need to listen to these people because they have a message for us all. What sort of future, what sort of development trajectory do we need? Corporations and governments are not willing to listen, and people are getting assassinated to remove those voices. Didn't they say the president of Haiti was assassinated by people dressed in uniforms? Huh. The indigenous wisdom fighting to remain alive is the same wisdom that Earth is, as Cortine says, the common household that we share. Hope, he said, lies in the vision of a possible world that is of life, love, and beauty. This is a time for a new economics that can create a culture and institution based on sufficiency and abundance for all. Ubuntu, together we live, in isolation we die. Cortines' 8 principles for the economics of the 21st century includes new economic indicators that measure the well-being of people and the planet rather than measuring consumption rates or monetization of relationships. Use resources, including labor, in a way that benefits all life, which means doing away with war, dependence on cars, financial speculation, and advertising that promotes consumerism. Change in ownership so that power returns to the hands of the people and taking it away from the transnational corporations. Create an accountable, transparent money system that serves community interests. Refocus education so that it gives skills to deal with the rapid and dramatic change that lies ahead. Create and use technology to enhance the well-being of people and planet, and limit technologies that exploit, control, or displace people or nature. Create interlinked create interlinked cooperative bioregional communities, linking rural with urban communities, and allowing the free sharing of information and technology with all who might benefit, and for the human population to achieve a healthy balance with other species in a way that is consistent with well-being of all. I thank you guys so much for watching this COVID 19 and the Indigenous Saviors. Like I told you, in this video, I just gave you the whole pie. Right now, you have the whole pie. I gave you keynotes. You can start dividing the pie if you want to, but I am going to divide the pie. And in each season, now that I have given you the whole pie now, each season, I'm going to be giving you slices, self-serving slices of that pie. And we're going to learn more, and we're going to learn more, and we're going to start taking back this planet, and we're going to start using our powers that has been given to us, our God-given powers, and we're going to find out how great we are. Because it's we the people that have control. We the people. Thank you so much. This is the Darius Corbin Mystery School. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you soon. Till then.